David Samson is with us. His podcast is Nothing Personal. He works very hard on it. It comes out first thing in the morning. The degree of difficulty on what he is doing, a solo show, not a lot of people covering that subject matter. Not a lot of people in the media space are doing what he is doing. I encourage you to listen to the podcast, watch on YouTube, because there are not a lot of people doing right now what David Samson is doing. Colin Cowherd, the one-man show he does it with 10 writers. Those are grenades lobbed in the air to go viral, and that's how Colin Cowherd's going to do it at the end of his career. David Samson is starting his career as a solo artist. This shit is hard as a solo artist. I hated it as a solo artist. I wasn't very good at it as a solo person. So I'm encouraging you to listen to that podcast. It's very good. And I will say again, most people are afraid of a lot of the stuff that he's talking about, so they just let it go. They do not talk about it. Now, we've been making fun of you again, David, because we brought up that sound that you had a bunch of years ago about Ichiro bringing down baseball with his $100 million contract. And now you're out here, and I think you're louder than anybody, shriller than anybody about this contract is doom. Have you seen anyone push that take further than you, where you are pissed off on behalf of baseball, management, and everyone else, as always, that labor got money? You're pissed off that a guy gets paid what he deserves.
I'm also pissed off on behalf of agents. There's not one person in the baseball atmosphere who's happy with the Ohtani contract. The agents aren't happy, and I've spoken to a bunch of them because that deferral is an absolute joke without interest. The owners are not happy because they cannot compete with what the Dodgers offered. The way Ohtani and his agent dealt with this entire thing, it's actually not been positive in any way. And now you're seeing all the teams scurrying to sign the next guy, whether it's Yamamoto. The Giants immediately signed this Korean player, gave him $113 million. So there's a great game of musical chairs going on.
David, why? Why do you think? Who does this deal help?
Who does the Ohtani deal help?
Yeah.
Well, if you believe that Ohtani can actually move to a state where there's no taxes and only have to pay tax on $2 million a year, the California rate, for 10 years, and then move to Florida the way Scherzer has and pay no state tax on $680. If you believe, because the tax law states, as some people are saying, if you defer money 10 years out, you pay tax in the place where you are when you get that money. That loophole is going to be closed. If I'm Ohtani, I am not assuming I get that savings. He never was going to leave Southern California. It was either the Dodgers or the Angels. I thought the Angels. And the Dodgers just went too far, and it's typical Dodgers with their financial bullying. All you had to do was defer 50% the way Scherzer got deferred or the way Betts or Freeman, but they made it so it's embarrassing.
David, so I don't know how these things work. You ran a baseball team, so you know better than I do.
Yeah, same.
Looking from it from afar, when he defers all that money, it seems like, okay, well then the Dodgers owner would be incentivized to just sell the team before he has to pay him the $680 million. But that's not how it works, correct?
No, there's something called a purchase price adjustment. That means when you buy something, so picture when you buy a house, and if that house, through inspection, it needs a new roof, you go back to the seller and say, hey, I was offering you $300,000, but a new roof costs $30,000. I'm now only going to give you $270,000 because I have to pay $30,000 for a new roof. And if I don't buy the house, you're going to have to get the new roof or it's going to leak all over you. That's what will happen with this Ohtani deal. If the Dodgers choose to sell, there is not an owner out there, any prospective owner, no matter how rich that person is, who will pay Ohtani $680 million not to play. So if the Dodgers are worth $6 billion, they'll actually get $5.32 billion instead of the full $6 billion.
But do they have to put anything like in escrow over these years? So they're actually paying part of it now, correct?
It really is such a joke, yes. Major League Baseball has this rule, and the union doesn't want any rules. They're okay with deferrals because players like forced savings plans, etc. But the rule is you actually have to segregate the amount of deferred comp that you have. You get a 2-year grace period, but any deferred comp over 2 years gets segregated. So let's pretend that we're today. The Dodgers don't have to segregate anything. But in 2 years, they have to segregate what he's got remaining. But the way you do it, and this is what teams do, you take a picture of your bank account that shows the amount of money in it that covers the deferred money. But that's only a snapshot. So what owners do is they reallocate from other accounts, assets they have, or they borrow money from a bank for 5 minutes. They put it into an account, and then they take it out
That's
the minute
unbelievable.
baseball certifies.
That is unbelievable.
Billionaires are just like us.
No, but what Samson just did there, did you see the grinning light of delight on his face?
He loves it.
Oh, look at how happy he was. Let me tell you this secret about how owners fake what they're doing so that they could keep the business Ponzi scheme going. That's unbelievable how delighted you were, not to reveal the Ponzi scheme, to be happy that it exists.
You rebel.
Well, it's so critical because you don't want to have that money just sitting there in an account available at all times, because you want that money working for you in other ways.
I would take it. I'll put that in my account. It can sit there as long as it wants. David, my question, what you just said all sound like a lot of math. The one thing that I take away from this is that Bobby Boniya Day ends in 2035, and Shohei Ohtani Day is, if that's what we're going to call it, feels like it is, starts in 2034. So I just feel like it's important we always have one of those big days happening, and I'm glad that they dovetailed it like this.
And Charlotte is right. I believe that what you did there, what you just did to explain that to us, is more informed than anyone I've heard talking about these contracts. And Charlotte is right when she says people are tuning out. It's just a bunch of numbers.
No,
It's a bunch
come
of
on.
it's a bunch of numbers.
No.
It's a bunch.
That was interesting.
No, wait.
I was into it too.
I'm into it. That was interesting.
I
David.
agree. It was interesting to me. Man, you're going to explain to me that America hates math? Like, America hates math, and he's talking numbers. And you know what's worse than math? Doing it in podcast form, rat-a-tat-tat style, with a guy who's the smiling face of corporate greed, who enjoys telling you about these dirty secrets these billionaires do to keep sports from us ever knowing, hey, Ohtani, he's kind of undervalued at $700 million because he pays for himself with all of the international money that comes over. Doesn't even need our $700 million because of how much he makes. No, I know you're going to disagree. Of course you are. He is worth this money, David.
Of course you are.
Let me give you some facts about Bobby Boniya and why that day is so special. Do you know that Bobby Boniya, the reason why he gets the $1 million a year is the Mets deferred his money, but they pay him 8% interest. And the reason they were willing to pay Bobby Boniya 8% interest on their money is the Mets were investing that money that they would have paid to Boniya, and they were giving it to Madoff. And so they were getting more than 8%, so it's a great business deal. Take cash, get 15%, but only pay 8% to get it. That's a winner. The loser is Ohtani, who's getting 0 interest on his money.